500 years ago, a man named Amerigo Vespucci sailed to the Americas. He was the first European to reach the mainland of the United States, and he did it 37 years before Christopher Columbus. But why is the United States named after a guy who isn't even credited with discovering it? Well, it turns out that the story of how America was discovered is a lot more complicated than you might think. You see, for centuries before Christopher Columbus, people had been sailing around the world, including to the Americas. The Vikings, for example, had established a settlement in Newfoundland, Canada, around 500 years before Columbus arrived. But Columbus's voyages are still considered a pivotal moment in history because they marked the beginning of the Age of Exploration, a period of time when Europeans were eager to explore and conquer new lands outside of their own. After his first voyage, Columbus wrote a letter to the Spanish king and queen describing the riches he had seen and the people he had met. And in that letter he claimed that he had reached the shores of India. That meant that to the rest of Europe, the people living in the Americas were Indians. And for hundreds of years, the continents of North and South America were referred to as the New World or the West Indies. But as time went on, Europeans realized that these lands were not actually part of Asia. They were, in fact, a completely new continent. To distinguish these lands from the known parts of the world, they started calling them America. The name was chosen to honor a man named Amerigo Vespucci, who was an Italian explorer and a cartographer. In 1502, Vespucci sailed to South America and realized that the lands he had seen were not actually part of Asia. He published a letter describing his journey and urging other Europeans to explore these new lands. His writings helped to inspire future explorers and are considered an important contribution to the early knowledge of the Americas. However, there is some debate as to whether Vespucci really was the first European to reach the Americas. There is evidence that Portuguese explorers may have landed in South America before Vespucci, but those claims are disputed. So why isn't the United States named after Christopher Columbus? Well, it turns out that the people who named the United States didn't think he discovered the continent. You see, by the time the United States was being colonized, it was well known in Europe that the Americas were not part of Asia, and stories about the Viking settlement in Newfoundland had become quite popular. So it was no great discovery for Columbus to sail to the Americas in 1492, and therefore his name wasn't seen as a suitable namesake for the New World. On the other hand, Amerigo Vespucci's writings had played a key role in establishing the fact that the Americas were a new continent, and so the name America was chosen to honor him and all the explorers who would follow in his footsteps. I hope you enjoyed learning about how America was discovered. See you next time.